Good morning, everybody, and thank you for being here today. I'm talking about how we talk to each other and about the quality of conversations that those talkings create. When you stop to think about it, and we often don't stop, we're far too busy talking, you realize that the conversations we have, in fact, do a great deal to create the relationships that we finally develop. Many of our conversations are inconsequential, easy, forgettable. Some aren't. Some conversations can change the direction of a career, and in one conversation can determine whether that career soars or becomes a damp squib. Other conversations can lay the foundation for a lifelong relationship. Some conversations are really important, and it's the important ones that tend to be the more difficult ones. We all face them, we all recognize them, and 99.9% of us dread them and avoid them where possible. Everybody's nodding. So let's look at some specifics here. And we're talking here about conversations in which you're trying to do two things. Get a result, an outcome, resolve a problem, change behavior, and at the same time, develop a relationship or improve a relationship with someone. Getting one or the other of those outcomes is quite easy. If you've got the power and the authority, you can get results and behavior change quite easy. Push, threaten, cajole, whatever. If you give up on the outcome, give up on the behavior change, you can maintain relationships quite easily. Play nice, be polite. It's the and that's the difficult part. Most of you are from the corporate world, and most of you, I guess, are managers, team leaders in some way. Some of the most commonly difficult conversations in the corporate world are the ones where you're talking to people who report to you and who are not performing, at least not to the level you'd like them to. The problem could be a one-off problem. Someone who's been performing suddenly isn't. And that really ought to be a non-conversation. You've been doing so well, what happened this morning? And even those conversations managers tend to avoid. And so it develops into a pattern. And now instead of talking about the problem we had this morning, a simple one, late coming. You were late this morning, what happened? It could be a problem of, I've noticed you've been late for 2 of the last 3 days. Or the reports you've been sending through to me for the last 3 months have been incorrect. That's a much more high-stakes, hazardous, difficult, tough conversation. And then some other kinds is the inherited problem. One of the ways we have of avoiding problems, certainly at work, is we wait until somebody else takes it over. So you've taken over, you've been there, you've taken over a new team and you've inherited someone who's never had honest feedback in the last 6 weeks or 10 years. And now they've left it to you. What chance do you have of resolving that kind of problem? And so you continue avoiding it. You have a situation where someone's performing very well, but behaving very badly. And it could be something to do with when they're here, they perform well, but they're abusing their sick leave, which I think is an epidemic in Johannesburg right now. Or they're performing very well when they get here, but they tend not to get here in time very often. Or they perform very well, but it's the way they talk to clients on the telephone. They're so aggressive. Those kind of conversations are difficult because you don't want to damage the performance, the output, but at the same time you want to try and fix the behavior. Who's working with people who've got negative attitudes? There's an epidemic of those as well. Any conversation containing the word attitude is guaranteed to be difficult. And one of the problems, of course, is that we intuit attitude from the behaviors that we observe. And they're always difficult. And any and all of those conversational types can be with colleagues or with clients. Colleagues where your performance depends on input from someone, or they're handling one part of the process, it then comes down the line to you. You haven't got authority over that colleague, but at the same time you've got to get their commitment and their cooperation and their standard of work performance so you can achieve yours. Clients, I know clients are always right, but wouldn't you like if they could be right first time when they give you an order or give you a spec? And going back to try and negotiate that, or to talk about the 10th time the client has changed something is really tough. And then again, you can have all of these kinds of conversations up the line to your boss or your manager. You know the phrase career limiting? That one. That. Any conversation up the line just takes on greater difficulty and greater risk than any conversation down the line. Why? It's your boss, obviously. Those are tough conversations at work. You want to see some really tough conversations? And they're the ones that tend to happen outside of work. All the people who drive you crazy in your social life, and they could be at work as well, who talk and talk and talk, but never listen to what you have to say. And you sit there like a rabbit caught in the headlights, wondering, how on earth can I escape? You ever get that feeling? There are people who abuse your hospitality. It could be a family member. It could be a son or daughter who left for overseas when the economy was looking great and lost their job and came back home. Just for 6 months, Mum, until I get my feet, but that was 18 months ago. Yeah? Noisy neighbours. I never make up my examples, by the way. I have two friends who've recently bought a plot way out of town because in their upmarket suburb, they have a family next door, I think, 2 teenage boys who tinker with their motorcycles every Saturday afternoon, and the father who drives a Ferrari who leaves it idling outside their front door what seems like most of Sunday morning. You don't speak up because you'll offend your neighbours. You want the behaviour to change, but you want to maintain the relationship, and you're back into that and situation again. Controlling parents. I meet lots of young people who move in from rural areas or from the coast, but daddy can't let go. You don't want to upset your father, but you want to live your own life. How do you have those conversations when the relationships are critically important? Who's got possessive in-laws? My son's sitting here. You're not supposed to speak up at this point. The in-law conversations. We all know those. And who's got toxic friends? The ones who abuse your time, your hospitality, whose problems are always bigger than your problems. Have you met those people? Drive you crazy. And who have people who borrow things from them? It might be your favorite books, your favorite CDs. Well, let me ask you, who's sitting here this morning who's lent money to a friend or a family member in the expectation you would get it back? Yeah, I know. And let me guess, you probably asked for it once, feebly, kind of, obliquely. Nothing happened. You might have ended up being a little more direct, touch of sarcasm maybe. See, you're off overseas again. Gosh, I wish I could go overseas. And you still haven't got your money back. One of the angriest people I've met recently was a young man who lent a CD to his friend. And I was trying to resolve this issue with him. And finally I said, hang on, how long ago did you lend this CD? Oh, about 16 months, he said. Who's got borrowers who drive them crazy? And these are all conversations in which we don't speak up. The question is, why not? And I think the simple answer is, we're scared of a whole bunch of things. We're scared that when we speak up with our view, our opinion, our feelings about a situation, we look stupid, we'll be accused of overreacting, we'll put ourselves out there, and that's scary. We're scared the other person won't be scared of speaking up and won't be scared of telling us exactly how foolish they think we are. We're scared that when we do speak up, you put yourself out, it won't make a difference. The person won't change. But they may attack you and insist that you change. And who likes conflict? We're scared that we'll have a hugely emotional, soul-destroying conversation and nothing will change. Everything will simmer down eventually, get pushed back onto the carpet, and things will continue as before. Or maybe they won't. They'll get worse. You'll damage the relationship, and you'll end up wishing that you just put up with something, whatever it was, and live with it. And so my sense is a lot of us go around through our lives biting our lips, holding our tongues, with a big knot of tension wherever you carry your tension, your tummy and your shoulders and your headache. And while you're biting your lip and holding on to that stress, that anxiety, that frustration, that anger, what's happening inside? It's boiling up. I think like witch's cauldron, it bubbles and finds the smoke coming out your ears. And then one day the person does it or doesn't do it one more time. And what do? Everybody uses the word explode. That's what we do. And it's not pretty. Because now it's your emotion driving the conversation. And you blame people, you accuse. It's totally emotion-driven. You try and push people to do it your way, to fix things, to stop doing what they're doing. If you can, you threaten, you shout, you swear, there's tears. The last thing you do is listen to their side of the story. So you never really get to hear what's going on. A lot of us do live our lives in one of two states: shut down for most of the time and blowing up for the rest of the time. When you blow up, horrified at what you've done, you withdraw into silence, which lasts longer the next time. And there's more fear the next time of the inevitable confrontation and emotional storm. There has to be a better way. And in the time that we have, let me try and give you some tips for creating that better way. I've organized them under 5 aspects of any conversation. And what I'm talking about here is how to set up a conversation so that it's safe enough that we can talk. If you get really good at this, you can get to the point, it takes practice, where you can talk to almost anything, almost anyone, about almost anything. I say almost. You'll always choose your conversations. And there'll always be some conversations you will choose not to have for whatever personal high-risk reasons. But when you acquire a modicum of skill, you'll be amazed how many conversations you can step up to and what positive outcomes you can get from them. So let's look at how you open a conversation. I've used the head killer openings on this slide and the next one. On this slide, I want you to take it literally. Killer openings which kill any chance of having a conversation. And I'm sure you recognize these. Can I see you in my office? No. Now, coming down a telephone line, it's bad enough. But what happens if it's the big boss and he's standing at your office door? The whole tension, the stakes rise enormously. This proposal is nonsense, he or she says as he or she throws it on your desk. Doesn't sound like a good opening for an open feedback conversation. Like I said before, any conversation containing the word attitude, particularly in the opening line, is bound to have a bad ending. What do you think you're doing? Is total accusation, which means instant lack of safety for the other person. A lot of people say, I can't understand why everyone's so defensive. Now, I don't think any of us waking up in the morning to be defensive. Defensive is a response. Guess what? It's to you being accusing. And a lot of us are a lot more accusing in our openings to conversations than we ever plan to be and ever dream that we actually are. And then you all recognize the famous one, darling, we have to talk, in which every man I've ever come across runs for cover. So you can totally wipe out the possibility of having an effective, constructive, rational conversation in about 1, 2, 3, 5 words. You can also do it before you ever speak. I work for you, you call me to your office, and I find you standing there, hands on hips, clearly waiting for me. And you haven't said a word, but the tone of that conversation has been set already. So what I'm wanting to give to you are some aspects of conversations to think about, as opposed to just keeping quiet and then going in guns blazing. Probably your grandmother said, think before you speak.